Hello everybody watching this video. My name is Jaffer, and in this video I will explain part of a theory that I developed. That is the theory of the fifth dimension. Well, to start with, I will remember a bit of philosophical concept that is the concept of Plato's world of forms, or world of ideas. Plato said that there is a sensible world and a non-sensible world. The non-sensible world, which is the world of ideas, would be where ideas are, which would not change over time. Already, in the sensible world, we would have the material forms, which change over time, which we know from the five senses, recalling that Plato stated this about 2,400 years ago. Moreover, in the dialogue, The Republic, Socrates makes the allegory of the cave, where he compares men to prisoners in a cave, who can see only shadows, which would be the sensible world, not the complete reality that would be outside the cave. For example, all the horses we see in the physical world would be the manifestations of an ideal horse that would be in the world of ideas. These horses that we see in the physical world, as we know, are passengers. But the ideal of them would not be subject to the time. And it is from the idea of a horse, which has always existed, that all the horses we know in the sensible world would come. That is, according to what Plato described. Now, let's talk a little about dimensions in geometry. A straight line is a geometric object that has only one dimension, which we usually call straight line length, while a square has two dimensions that would be the width and the length. And a cube has three dimensions, as we know, width, length, and thickness. Therefore, a point has zero dimensions. It has neither width, nor length, nor thickness. The straight line can be seen as a set of many and many infinite points. In the same image, I put the dots in different colors, to be clear. All points, which are objects of dimension 0, form the object of dimension 1, which is the line. While a square can be seen as a set of many lines, also placed in different colors in the image, that is, the set of objects of a dimension, which are the lines, form an object of two dimensions, which is the square. The same goes for the cube. It is a set of squares, which are also put in different colors. An object of dimension 3, the cube, is formed by a set of objects of dimension 2, the squares. Thus, it is easy to note, and this can algebraically proved, that an object with x dimensions is made of a number of objects with x minus 1 dimensions. So, what would a four-dimensional object be? It is already known that the fourth dimension is time. The answer is that a four-dimensional object is an event. Let's see why. Here, we have a drawing representing a red ball falling over time and dripping on the ground. That would be an example of an event. At every instant, we have a three-dimensional ball in a different position. When we put these instants together, we get the complete event, which is the set of all instants. Therefore, a four-dimensional object is said to be an event. And that is one reason why we say that the universe is a space-time, because as time is the fourth dimension, we live in a four-dimensional universe. Now, what would a five-dimensional object be? Well, by the way, it would be a set of four-dimensional objects. But since four-dimensional objects are events, a five-dimensional object would be a set of events. But do we know anything that is the set of events? Yes, what we said at the beginning of the video, an idea. For example, the idea of a horse in the non-sensible world would be formed by the set of events involving horses in the physical world, sensible. That is, all horses in the physical world, in the past and in the future, would be manifestations of this perfect idea that is outside the sensible space-time. To make this clearer, think of the following. Can your idea of a horse be explained only by a horse winning? Or is a horse without winning also part of this idea? Is an inclined horse not part of that idea either? Or a sleeping horse? Yes, all these are events that would form a five-dimensional object that is the idea, which is nothing more than the general information that makes you know what a horse is. That is, the world of ideas would be a space of five dimensions, where there are objects of five dimensions, which are the ideas. These five-dimensional objects would also be timeless. Why? See this. We cannot measure areas which have two dimensions with units of meter, which is a unit for a dimension. Likewise, we cannot measure volumes which have three dimensions with units that serve for areas, which have two dimensions. Nor can we measure periods with cubic meters. In the same way, we could not measure objects of five dimensions with seconds, since the fifth dimension would be above the fourth, that is, things there would be timeless. Now, in addition to making a lot of sense, we'll show little evidence of the existence of this. Let's talk about a meeting between objects. Imagine a two-dimensional object formed by two interlocking squares of names A and B, and also a line of one dimension. Now imagine a hand pushing the two squares down towards the line. Obviously, these squares would approach the line until they found it, and when they did, they would play the line at exactly the same time, because they are connected and the hand has pushed them at the middle point of the connection. Also, they will find the straight line in two straight segments, which are highlighted in green. These green segments have one dimension, such as the straight line. Well, we could do something similar with two cubes, pushing two connected cubes towards a plane. Obviously, the cubes would find the plane in two squares, which have two dimensions, highlighted in green in the image. Imagine there was a two-dimensional creature dwelling on this plane. Just like in Flatland, I drew this creature in light blue on the plane. Imagine that this creature had a totally two-dimensional view, that is, that could only see in the two dimensions of the plane where it lives. What you would see would be just the two green squares of the meeting of the cubes with the plane, because she cannot see out of the plane, and so she could not see the connection between the two cubes, right? Because that connection is outside the plane. As it is visible, the two cubes would find the plane at the same time, and the creature would see the squares appear at the same time as well. Now, save it. Let's just present a concept of quantum mechanics. In quantum mechanics, there is a phenomenon called quantum entanglement, which is basically the following. Measurements made on one particle can instantly influence the state of another particle, even if the two are separated by a billion kilometers. Well, folks, visibly, this goes against the statement of the relativity theory that says nothing can travel faster than light. However, this phenomenon has already been proven. And this is one of many reasons why physicists have so much trouble reconciling quantum mechanics with relativity. But let's consider the following. What is to measure? Well, measuring is finding information, and we do this in the space-time. But guys, we've already seen that the information, according to this theory, would be five-dimensional objects. So, when there is a measure, we would have a finding of a five-dimensional object in four-dimensional space-time. So, let's return to the previous example. Those squares had dimension 2 and the line a dimension 1. That is, 2 minus 1. And the green segments of the encounter, also one dimension. Now, let's imagine that these squares represent the information, which has dimension 5, and the line represents space-time, which has dimension 4. That is, one less dimension, 2. When we measure, we are making the information find the space-time. And if this information is connected with another, this information will find the space-time at the same time. Regardless of the distance in space-time, they would always appear in space-time together. So, we just need to consider that particles actually have 5 dimensions. The informational part would be in the 5th dimension. When measured in quantum entanglement, the information being connected to one another would come together from the 5th dimension to 4-dimensional space-time. And so it is easy to understand the quantum entanglement. That is, folks, when we measure, we make the encounter between a piece of information, which has 5 dimensions, and space-time, which has 4 dimensions, creating an event, which is a 4-dimensional object like the space-time. That is, quantum entanglement would go against the theory of relativity, unless information is not going through space-time, but outside it in a 5th dimension. Another evidence would be the existence of another phenomenon of quantum mechanics, which is the quantum superposition of states. In this phenomenon, it is said that a particle in the same place would be happening in several different ways, would have different states, but at the same time, which is very strange. Unless we consider that this is indeed the particle in the 5th dimension, a 5-dimensional object, which is a set of events related to the particle, placed on the same place above the space-time, giving us the impression that they are different events happening in the same place. As for an inhabitant of flatland with a 2-dimensional view, the squares forming a cube would appear to be in one place on the plane, for he would have no sense of the height of the 3rd dimension. When the measure occurs, a single event appears in the space-time. That is the encounter between the idea, information, with the 4-dimensional space. It would be the collapse of the wave function. The event or quantum state that happens would be a part of this idea, this 5-dimensional object intersecting the space-time. And this explanation is valid only if these objects of 5 dimensions and that 5th dimension are the information, the ideas, and the respective space of information or space of ideas. So, what this 5th dimensional theory suggests is that there is a 4-dimensional space, which is subject to time, where our physical bodies exist, and a space of 5 dimensions, where information or ideas would exist outside the brain, and which would not be subject to time, as Socrates and Plato described. These ideas would not be solid, sensible, because they would not fit, because of their size of 5 dimensions, into a space of 4 dimensions, which is space-time. This was a well-brief explanation of part of the 5th dimensional theory. This theory I present better in my book, The Dimensions, whose link to read online is in the description of the video, and it is free. There are several details that people may question that I omitted in this video, but that I possibly mention in the book. In this book, I present many other evidences for the necessity of the existence of a fifth dimension, not only of quantum mechanics, but also microscopic evidences. One of the merits of this theory is to open space to understand the formation of consciousness and thoughts, for example. In addition, this theory allows a union between which have been separated for centuries, science and spirituality. Due to the immaterial and metaphysics character that we assume for the fifth dimension, and the independence between this invisible information and the physical bodies. Moreover, the fact that the world of ideas is something real, objective, and five-dimensional has the potential to make much more accurate the analysis of seemingly subjective philosophies in ethics, politics, law, and pedagogy. So, friends, ideas would be both the inside of the brain and the outside, because everything would be five-dimensional. The universe would be informational. This fits perfectly not only in Plato's philosophy, but also in those of many other ancient thinkers such as Jesus Christ, who, unfortunately, is not exactly what religions have preached, who advised us to join well in the eternal kingdom, where the moth does not corrode. That is, it would be part of the fifth dimension that is timeless, and thieves do not steal, of course, because no one takes away our knowledge, the information we have structured in ourselves. That's it. Thanks for joining me here. Bye.